I was just outside doing my yard work. And the great thing about doing the yard work, you get to feel things from the ground up and make certain decision and how you're going to be organized and how you're going to be planting it. And we were just hit with a huge rain um, earlier in this January, and we talked about the power of water. And some of it kind of ruined my plants, so I'm just kind of moving them around to see them and get them kind of acquainted to see what kind of environment, if it's going to work or not work. And that's the same thing goes with our life. Don't you love this hat? It has this one so you don't get that burn in the back. Anyways, and so things that sometimes when we go through self-awareness is the struggle to find your self-worth. And during that time of feeling all of these things, there are 5 elements that contains to self-awareness. And sometimes whenever we are going through this transition of feeling that changes because you start to understand the self-worth. Sometimes when we are in a relationship, it could be anything from your family, your loved ones, your work, your client, anything straight across, because this helps everything that goes straight across the board. And sometimes you meet up with people with really wants to control, only see things in their view, but they don't see things in your view. And when that happens, we kind of lose our own self-control, our own self-worth, as well as our own self-destiny. And so we create this thing of this belief system where we become handled into their world. And this is when they start to use this tactic. And it usually happens whether you are at work, in the outer world meaning the outer people, that starts to control in what you do. And they coerce you to do things that, you think you're doing it for the better of the good. But sometimes you don't even realize that you just got sucked into it, And usually that happens when you have people that have this narcissistic behavior. And narcissistic behavior is a whole different element, and how they're so good at really controlling the narrative. And when I say controlling the narrative, is whether it's how they do it, like the media, for once. And we start to recognize how the media controls the narrative. It could be when, let's say if you're in a lawsuit and one party wants to control the other party's narrative. So they can go and present the case, for example, to the judge on their side of their narrative. And these are just people who are third party because they are the lawyers, right? And so a lot of these truth and justice system is sometimes coerced to listen to one-sided narrative, and whichever, like they say, gets to the media first, and how they control it and who's behind of it. And so that is just a lot of these things that happens around us. And it could be something like an everyday thing where it's a relationship and you get things where you just do it because you feel like you have to do it, and you feel that you're coerced in doing into things that you think you're doing good because you're such a nice person and you give in and you do it. But deep down inside, you're upset about it, but you don't do anything about it. And sometimes we don't know what to do, and that's why we just let it go and let it grow, and it happens. And it goes to the next stage and the next stage, where you kind of lose your complete freedom, your complete choice of what you want to do, as well as your decision in what to do. And so these are some of the things that I pinpoint and make you understand that in this, webinar that I'm going to be doing, is how we can really focus. And sometimes we do get sucked into, but how do you get out of that situation and really set your mind into putting out, like I said in our earlier videos of 2020, 2021, I don't remember, of boundaries. And when you set up boundaries, people are not going to like it, because believe me, when I came back, oh, Monica's back, but it's also during the pandemic, and people came and go into my place, and like how it was before. But then for me, I was living in LA, and that's a whole different universe out there, and how you protect yourself, and how people come over, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you're at that different stage of life, and some of these people who thinks it's okay just come over and just it's without any welcome, invitation or stuff like that. And that kind of really irritated me, because, and when you put your foot down, they didn't like it. Oh, some people did not like it at all. They will curse, they will tell me what to do at my house. And, some of them just say whatevers. And so that's okay, because, it is what it is. And so that's why I'm saying is that you're going to go through some of these issues, and it's really just minor stumbles and really minor things, because it goes to the next level of how you're going to overcome and mature from all of these things through self-awareness. And so it's really just a process, because it took me a while, where I went from getting this house, being a new dog owner, to just getting married, just going through a whole bunch of stuff. And there's a lot of us that is going through that, or may have gone through that, and we're at a next phase of life. And so each little tools really identify in your real, and how to use it in your problems. And so stay tuned, because I'm going to write more about all of this and how it really works to make an self-efficient your lifestyle, because it's really tuning out the behavior problems, because we are creatures of bad habits, and bad habits turns into our behavior problem. And so I'm getting all these texts. Oh my God. Okay. My friend from LA is just texting me right now. And so, things like that really makes you happy, because the reason why I really love LA is because I created a different new environment, a new behavior, a new habit, a new way of life, because I needed to take off. And so sometimes in life we do need to take off, because I will always remember those words. Because my friend, used to go and clean the pool across the street, Gary, and we were talking one day at Sandy Beach, and he always told me, he goes, you know what, Monica, sometimes you need to take off. And literally the next day, he committed suicide and he passed away. And so that really, and I always thought, to this day I'm shocked. I don't know what really happened, why. But we were just sitting there and having such a great session about life. And those words were always sink into me. And then after that, I had that opportunity to take off from Honolulu after, going through a whole bunch of stuff in my life. Like 5 people died in 1 year. It was crazy, And so each and every one of us have different stories. Each and one of us have different ways of mourning the lost, mourning the changes of ourselves, and mourning that how we're going to go forward. And so, life is, like I always say, it's too short, but it's never too late to start over again. And when you make that decision, you're going to find a different path, a different happiness, and a different way of seeing through the different lens of life. Because in life, there's so many different phases. Sometimes this chapter can be so long, and sometimes this chapter can be so short. It's how and when you want to close that. For example, this chapter 7, you're on chapter 8, chapter 9, chapter 10, and how long you want to continue your book of life. It's really how you want to close the door and shut the windows. It's not saying that you could never open it again. It's just saying that it's time for you to end it. And that's why we have different phases in our, like one of my 3 course, but the 3 course is divided into another 3 course, which is 9 course, and then the final 10 course. So that's some of the courses that I'm going to be offering. But to go back into what I'm trying to say is that sometimes in life, when we drag things too long, it comes bitter, right? Just like the lemon, there's that theory. You can squeeze a lemon and it tastes great, but if you squeeze it too much, you're not really going to make, much out of it, because you keep on squeezing and squeezing and squeezing, and you know what? It gets old and sour. And so, just like sometimes when people keep on blaming and blaming, even though it's not your fault, but they give you the guilt trip and make you think that it's your fault, so that's why you need to do certain things for them. That's always the case, whether it's your kids, whether it's your husband or your wife or your neighbor or your whatever, your boss, your client, your family members, your friends. The list goes on. And so we build up this feeling that if we don't do it, we're not being successful, what was given to us. But what if we look at this problem and say, and analyze it in a little better way, and to figure out that it's not your job to figure out other people's problems if they don't want to change. There is a saying that you can take the horse to the water, but you can't force the horse to drink it. In other words, you can give them this opportunity, but if they don't want to take this opportunity and just complain and say this or that or procrastinate, guess what? You gave that opportunity, but they didn't take it. And then when they don't take it, and then later on they said, oh, it's your fault, that's when you know that stagnant of water, that stagnant of situations, the problem will never, ever cease. It's just going to become into a cesspool of more bacteria, more problems, more issues, more everything that is going to sink like the Titanic. And that, what I'm saying is, and I'm going to post this about that there is a law about that, and we just talked about that in my other segment about the submarine. It's like the subconscious of what it really means could be a deeper, deeper, more understanding in that level. And that's where it comes so important, having this tool to dissect it, having this method of figuring it out in order for you to go to the next level. That was one of my very bad habit. And I have to admit it because I am an empath, an Hyoka empath, where I get really, really into the other person's emotions, the situation, the feeling, and I start to feel sorry to think I'm over there that was my job to save them. But at the end of the day, it's not my job. It's their job. It's your job to figure it out. You know, I have some of my clients that clings on, and they come back and they want more, but they can't get more from me because they haven't done their homework or their practice. I can only do them so much, but the rest is them to do it. You know, it's not my contract that I write for you. I give you the tools. I help you identify it and how to do it. But the rest is really up to you. And that's where we need to really put down our foot, whether you do this as a profession, because there is a lot of coaches out there and a lot of consultants out there, and there's a lot of, you know, people who have situation. Everybody have a situation. But it's how to use these tools that are so critical on how to work it to a better relationship, number one, within yourself, number two, the people that is around you, and number three, so you can have a happy, enlightenment, peaceful, blissful journey in life. So this tool can be anybody from being a teacher, to be a contractor, to be a plumber, to be a piano teacher, whatever you are. It's for you to implement into your life, you know, because sometimes even, you know, beautician, some of these beautician and some of these people that works in those industry, you know, the health industry, the wellness industry, you get bombarded and you sit there cutting their hair or doing something and you end up to be their listening board, their soundboard, you know, that moment, that time, because that's when they finally are relaxed. And so these are some of the things that we need to recognize, because the full moon is coming up on January the 17th, Monday. And so remember, always remember that after the full moon, you have 3 days of moon power. The same thing goes with the new moon. You have 3 days of moon power. So don't forget to get ready for your crystals to be recharged, re-energized, as well as writing things that you're going to let go. You know, it's a powerful time that's coming up on the 17th, and I'm going to give you more information on the next video. But, you know, for me, as I was, you know, talking and figuring out these things in my brains, and I said, you know what, I'm going to talk out loud about this. And so you stay tuned for more Cocojor Chit Chat Corner, as well as getting information on the new moon as well as the full moon on what's coming up. I call it prediction. Some people don't like that word, and I don't really like that word either. So I'm going to think about a better word. But stay tuned for more information, and don't forget to say aloha and take care.